Welcome back to another episode of The Hardcore Casual with your boy, Bass the Kid. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, an enemy, and anyone in between. I probably should have put out a video yesterday. I didn't. My apologies. There has actually been quite a few things worthy of talking about, but I was trying to let some of the dust settle on the whole Usyk Dubois controversy, if we're going to call it that, although I don't particularly think it was one. That being said, there is one thing about that subject I do kind of want to address really quick, so we'll get into that, and also there's a few other little bits back and forth in the world of boxing, primarily in the lightweight and super lightweight division. So without further ado, let's get into it. So kicking off, Shakur Stevenson and Devin Haney are still continuing their war of words over social media over a fight that isn't happening next, probably isn't happening the fight after next, or even the fight after that. So my overall thoughts on it is, the only thing I can personally think of is they're trying to build that rivalry for when they do eventually meet, either at 140 or 147. It's more than likely going to end up being at 140 right now, because they know that marination isn't necessarily the best course of action these days. That being said, you got Shakur Stevenson put out a video from somebody. I'm not sure exactly who that person was, but they've put out a video basically stating that, it's a video of Bill Haney essentially talking about, if 130, basically, if it gets too hot, that we can do it at 140, or we can go to 140. Now what a lot of people thought that meant was that Bill Haney was essentially saying, well, if you really want to try and press us, we'll just go to 140 anyway, as like you won't get the fight. When in actual fact, I think that video was from about 2 to 3 years ago, probably around the time of the pandemic, where basically what they was actually saying was that, well, you're only at 130 now, like we're at 135, but we're looking to go to 140, so when it's ready, like, you can move up to 135, and then if things get popping, like, ultimately, like, we'll be at 140, so you can kind of clean up there. But if that's not the case, and you really want, and it really gets to that point where we build it up, we can fight at 140, it's not a problem. And I felt it was very poor faith, disingenuous, like not becoming of proper code for whoever, like, I guess, recorded that video on the sly, because clearly it's not even like sparring footage where it's widely recorded, but it's it's supposed to be kept private. Like, someone's literally sneak recording a conversation from 2-3 years ago. It don't come off as cool, and the fact that someone even thought to put that out just looks very bitch made, for lack of a better phrase. So I mean, look, ultimately you've got Bill Haney then, I guess, retaliating, putting out some old sparring footage of Shakur Stevenson basically being in a sparring session with Devin, and now saying, let's finish off today, I'm tired. So I guess the insinuation is that Devin was giving him that work and Shakur couldn't keep up. Now look, I mean, ultimately the tit for tat stuff is cool, but I would much rather Devin just focus on Regis Prograis at the moment, and Shakur Stevenson focus on Frank Martin. Although, to be totally fair, because the purse bids and the negotiation for Frank Martin haven't happened yet, I can kind of see why you don't necessarily put your eggs in that basket. That is a top ranked PBC cross promotion, and we all know how notoriously hard those are to make. Whereas Devin, even though is not signed on the dotted line for Regis Prograis yet, that's realistically where you're supposed to be. So yeah, like, as far as I'm concerned, that's where your focus and your head needs to be at. Now, to be totally fair, it's not necessarily Devin that's having the back and forth with Shakur. I mean, there's a couple here and there over Twitter, but this is more between Bill Haney and Shakur and Shakur's team. Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's neither of that is stuff that I would necessarily condone. Youngsters or not, like, that's just not cool. Them sort of those sneak recordings for future ammo kind of thing. That ain't cool. That being said, though, I saw the boxing voice where I think it was either one of Shakur Stevenson's management team or someone that's associated with the team basically made a comment of saying, well, there was an $8 million pot on the line for the two of them to face each other, but he said, why would you take 8 million when you can have 16 million next year? Ultimately also alluding to the fact that Shakur Stevenson turned down an offer from Devin Haney on the premise of, well, the fight will be bigger next year, we can make it next year for more money if that's all you're offering. So if that is the case, I mean, that leads a bit of credence to the whole 25% thing, which apparently everyone, said, well, yo, if you really want those belts, take the offer. Even though, you had Bob Arum and I think someone else basically said that was it was a non-starter. There was no actual offer made, or there was no money behind that offer. That being said, though, I mean, is it not possible that DAZN could have potentially been fronting the bill, seeing as Devin was talking to them about the Regis thing? So maybe you make an offer to him with DAZN's backing of that financial outcome, and the 25% is still there. But it wasn't taken, so we just have to kind of look at it, move on, and say, boom, it is what it is. That being said, it's not necessarily a great situation, but I'd just like both of them to focus on their immediate fights, and as soon as those fights are done, then you can come back to this afterwards. So we're talking early November, sort of late November time. But I mean, I guess you keep stoking the fires for that future fight in the future. I can't make too much noise about it, but some of the tactics just don't really seem cool. Like, keep it to, keep everything above board, keep everything like front and center in it. That's how I'm kind of looking at it. Not all this behind the, behind back of the hand and sort of outside of the pocket type scenario. It's not really befitting of either of them, quite frankly. But moving on. So a little bit of news that just broke on Twitter about 45 minutes, an hour ago. Now, obviously, there's no necessary validity to it just yet, but in relation to Alicia Baumgardner's adverse findings, she's put out a tweet that has said that basically she wants everyone involved every step of the process that's going through, and they've got a report back, and while she can't share the contents of it yet for legal purposes, there were not 2 substances found in her test. So initially the report that came out to everyone was that there was the mesterolone and I think methanoline were 2 metabolites that were found in traces of her sample. Well, apparently now she's got a report that's come out and said that's not the case. There was not 2 substances found, but that's all it said. So that could mean that there was only 1. That could also mean that there was 3 or 4. She wasn't specific in saying there wasn't 2 samples and it was actually less than that, or whatever. Like she said, there wasn't 2. So the speculation could still run on, oh well, it could be more than that, then it could actually be 3, 4, 5 or 6. But for her to put it out there, I'm pretty sure that basically means that no, there was 1 adverse finding within there, which now they're gonna, I guess, do a way to try and explain or to clear up and say that it was some form of contamination. I'm interested to see moving forward, but I mean, look, that's good news thus far, and the fact that they are, I guess, trying to keep everyone in the loop about it makes sense, especially with sort of as active as she has been on social media. She's not hiding, she's not backing away, and generally speaking, when people stay in the public eye as much as they have, that usually means that even if they're not necessarily innocent in terms of it never happened, like they definitely, it was an unknowing situation. So I guess in that sense, it's positive. But yeah, and I don't mean positive in the worst sense. But yeah, we'll see what happens moving forward on that. But seeing as that just kind of dropped, I figured it was worth mentioning in this video. But yeah, let me get to the main topic so I can get this one out and look forward to basis picks in the morning. So a lot is still being made about this Alexander Usyk, Daniel Dubois situation. Now look, I've made my position perfectly clear on the actual shot itself, of it being low. I've seen more than enough shots of it. I've read the rules. Now here's the thing, the funny thing is when people say, oh well, it's actually not supposed to be below the navel anymore, it's the imaginary line between the hip bones. Well, people's hip bones, just like people's navels on their anatomy, are fall in different places, and where a lot of people see the widest part of the hip and they think that that's where the hip bone is, or the actual bone itself starts higher than that, most of the time actually starting around about the same place as the navel, or maybe like half an inch below. In some cases it's even half an inch above, depending on how long someone's pelvic floor actually is. So all of that being said, now the reason I bring that up is because the biggest misdirects that has come from this is that Usyk wears his trunks very high, and you know, like, well, because he wears his trunks very high, you should be able to punch on the waistband because they're higher than they should be anyway, so that should be a legal shot. Well, I want you to have a look at this really quickly. Did you see it? So Usyk, after getting off the ground from the Daniel Dubois low blow, borderline shot, clean shot, waistband shot, whatever you think it may be, he walks forward 2 to 3 steps, he breathes out, extends his body, and his navel pops up a good 2 inches outside of his guard. His trunks are also at the exact same point as his protector. So whereas you're allowed to wear it an inch higher, his sits at the top of his protector. Therefore, there is no room for error in terms of either where the navel is or how deep inside it is, or you can't make the distinction because the trunks are pulled up higher. Now, we all know Daniel Dubois actually wore his protector and trunks about 3 inches higher than Alexander Usyk did. Like his navel, his protector was literally up by his second set of abs. So it's funny when they made the whole misdirect about Usyk wearing his high. You know, when people say, oh, a lot of people, when they protest about someone else being a drug cheat, it's because they're probably on something and they're paranoid that because they're on it, other people are on it as well. In this situation, I think that's what the case was, if we were going to be totally honest. Because you're saying, well, I wear my cup and my protector high, so his one must be high as well. And I know that he doesn't like it to the body, so if I wear mine this high, well, his one's got to be up here as well. Ref, check that. Now, the only real error that Lewis Powerborn did in that whole thing was not establishing where the lines were at the start in front of the entire crowd, because then that just would have put to rest any issues. If he had said, I'm gonna let you work here on the belt line because these are a little high, or nope, the skin is what is your line and you don't go below that, there wouldn't have been any issues. And that shot, even if someone said, oh come on, it's just on the waistband, ref, and if he said nope, I said above the waistband only, then you've got an argument. But the thing that strikes me, and the reason I've even bothered to make this now, is to kind of put one thing to rest. For argument's sake, let's say Dubois was robbed, right? Just for argument's sake, it was a totally legal shot. Shots like that happen every day, every week. You get through them, no issues, and the ref should have allowed it to continue. And he should have administered the count and make Usyk either have to get up or be counted out and get KO'd. Okay. Well, throughout the entire build-up for this fight, you had Daniel Dubois, you had Frank Warren, you had Dev Sani, you had Don Charles, all pretty much saying along the lines of, by any means necessary, we will win this fight. Daniel said on numerous occasions, I'm gonna rough him up. I'm gonna make it a dogfight. I'm gonna, throw him about. He's a cruiserweight. He's a little guy. Like, you gotta just dominate the little guy. In some videos, he even made jokes and said, headbutts, knees, elbows, whatever it takes, by any means. He's said this on camera. You can go and find the videos. Don Charles has said similar things. Look, we're not here to box with him. We just need to be aggressive and just like put it on him, stick it on him, blah blah blah. So if you're saying all of this, what's the first thing that team is then going to possibly do? They're either going to say to the ref, they've said that they plan on winning this by any means necessary. Just keep an eye on those punches and make sure that they stay up. Keep an eye on the clinches, keep an eye on the head, blah blah blah. So the ref's going to be looking for that. Or the team is going to say, oh, you think you're going to do X, Y, and Z. All right, we're gonna adjust our game plan to tailor that. Hence, anytime you throw a shot that's even questionably low, they're going to point to the ref, check that. And now, because they've got all of that reference points and from you earlier on saying, yeah, gonna keep it dirty, he's a small guy, gonna throw him about, gonna rough him up, whatever it takes, like, so now that's already going to condition the ref. Oh, okay, well, I've got to make sure that it stays as clean as possible. So it almost comes to the boy that cried wolf, because there were some shots that Daniel threw that were low, but there was a lot that was legitimate. And I don't remember Usyk moaning at any of the legitimate shots. They were just always the low ones from what I saw personally. But it's like, you didn't rough him up, you didn't throw knees, you did try to headbutt him at one point, because we see that I think it was round 7. But within all of that, okay, you didn't do what you said you was gonna do, but the fact you pull it out there meant that other people was aware of it. So that whole situation itself just tells me that, it's a bit of a false dawn for you to then try and claim that the other person cheated and was cheating in the ring, when you literally went on interviews and said whatever it takes. Well, if that's the case, how can you be mad if Usyk milked the situation to get himself back into it, because he's the champion and by any means necessary, whatever it takes, he's gonna retain his belts. The game's the game. And again, if I go back and say, for argument's sake, Daniel Dubois was robbed. That was a clean shot. He deserves to have got Usyk knocked out. He should be the champion right now. Okay, he was robbed. So was Kevin Lerena. Because Kevin Lerena had the first round of that fight where he put Daniel Dubois on his knee 3 times. He had the first round stopped 10 seconds early after Dubois got up on the 3rd time. Who was to say what he could have done in those 10 seconds? Or the fact that in the WBO and the WBA, the rules actually state they have the 3 knockdown rule. And it's only by the fact you was at British Board of Boxing controls rules is that you was able to get up off that 3rd one without being waved off. But then 10 seconds left, could have went down again. Who knows? Or in the 3rd round, the fact that Kevin Lerena got punched twice after the bell ended and the ref waved off the fight after the bell had gone. So in actual fact, those are 2 shots that should have really equaled a disqualification if he couldn't continue, or at least a point being deducted at the start of the next round, and you allow Kevin Lerena to go on in the next fight or in the next round and see if he can get through that. If he goes down again, then you can wave it off. But you robbed him of that opportunity. So Okay, cool. Let's say you got robbed, but it's not like you haven't robbed other opponents in the past. Karma comes around. It is what it is. And this was just your moment. But ultimately, the biggest part of it, was it Zhilei Zhang came out the other day and basically said that Daniel Dubois quit, and that his heart is what needs to be worked on more than anything else. Joe Joyce came out and said you took that basically you quit in their fight, and that he believes, I think he said, no, actually the interview was from, I think, before the Usyk fight, but he basically said, he's soft, that he's got quit in him. Johnny Nelson said he's had quit in him. And this whole notion, right, of regular civilians, like the public, not having the right to say someone quit, to me is bullshit. I'll tell you why. Look, because the word quit is very literal. There's a legal definition of it. It's in the Webster Meridian Dictionary. It's in the Oxford Dictionary. You can look it up. By any means, it means an unwillingness to participate or an unwillingness to continue in an act, or whether employment or a task, to quit, right? Well, if you're unwilling to carry on, then you quit. Now, if it's the argument of, oh, well, you don't know what it's like to be punched in the face, and like you don't know what it's like in there, you're not the one taking those punches, so you don't have a right to tell someone that that they're a quitter or whatever. Well, I'm the one paying for them to get punched in the face. Like, if I put my money if I put my hand in my pocket and given you my money on the assumption that you've told me whatever it takes, by any means necessary, I'm gonna win those belts, and then you decide to take a knee in the 9th round and conveniently misjudge the count, well, am I not gonna then feel a bit cheated myself, because I've just paid money to see you come and you told me you was gonna win these belts? Well, you didn't do everything you could do to win the belts. And I'm only using Daniel as an example for this, just for the narrative that people say, oh, you should never say that an opponent, they've quit or whatever. No, so in this particular instance, I think, especially if it's on a pay-per-view show, a box office show, if you've paid your money, you've got a right to say whatever you want. If I pay for a ticket to go into an arena and I'm not satisfied with the performance that someone put in, or I think that someone basically cheaped out on me, I'm more than happy. I should be more than happy to say that. When a promoter, brings someone in to face one of their guys and they basically spew it in the first round, they take a couple of shots, say, oh, no, don't like that, and they take a knee, or they go sit in the corner, or they don't want to come out for the second round, the promoter always says, that was I expected more from him, I expected more heart, blah, blah, blah. And then the crowd will say the same thing. So why are we then not allowed to say that someone has quit just because they're British? Is it because they're British that you're not allowed to say that? Because I bet if Daniel Dubois was Alexander Usyk and we said he quit, no one's gonna say, oh, you shouldn't say that. It's like, oh yeah, well, he did, that's them foreigners for you, you can't really trust them. They're not made the same stuff we're made of. I'm pretty sure that's gonna be the argument, right? So as far as I'm concerned, there's no one, as Hatman used to say, that is there's no one that's below praise and no one that's above reproach or above criticism. And in this case and point, if I have a feeling towards someone, I'm not going to temper that feeling because of, I guess, nationalistic pride, especially if I've paid good money to have an opinion. Like I say, if I stream the fight, cool, I can understand someone saying you didn't even pay for it, you ain't got a right to say anything. I can hear that, because I'm one of those people. If you don't put your hand in your pocket and pay for something, you ain't got a right to complain. I don't want to hear what you've got to say. That's always been me. Whether other people agree with that, that's my stance on it. I don't want to hear from you if you ain't paid for it, because I've put my hand in my pocket, you haven't. You've stolen it, I purchased it legally. Therefore, my opinion should mean more than yours. And in that particular scenario, if I'm not happy with your performance, or I feel like there was more to give and you chose not to give it, I should have a right to say that. Now, yeah, it might mean more coming from, other ex-professionals or professionals than it does from me, but that shouldn't mean that I don't have a right to say it, especially if, like I said, my money has gone into your salary. Like, you're getting paid because I paid for the pay-per-view, or that I had an interest in you and I put your money into your pocket, or I paid money to go to the arena and be seated. So yeah, you got paid because I put money in. So therefore, if I'm paying, and basically I'm paying for you and you are my entertainment for that evening, then I have a right to praise that entertainment or criticize that entertainment. And if you only want to hear, oh yeah, that was brilliant, but then never want to hear that wasn't good enough, well, sorry, that's not gonna be from me. That's how I kind of see it. Yeah, I kind of just wanted to get that out there, get that off my chest. Probably videos run a little longer than I was expecting, apologies, but that's all cool. Leave your comments down below. If I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. We can have a discussion. If I'm right, you can say I'm right. If you don't care either way, you can still leave a comment. It helps with the engagement. But thank you very much. I'm gonna leave it there. That's the Hardcore Casual out.